Hey there, thanks for joining us right here on BERNAMA today. Tamina Kausji, Jessie Chahal taking you through 18th of July 2018, smack in the middle of the week. It's a wonderful Wednesday.
Yes, it is. Now, of course, if you're tuning in to us on Astro, it's channel 502, but we are also available on all other platforms. We are live streaming on BERNAMA.com. It's channel 631 on Unified TV and channel 121 on My TV, so you've got absolutely no excuses not to catch us.
That's right. Anywhere you go, we are there. We'll follow you. Right, so we've got top stories of the day to bring to you, and some highlights as well. Make sure that you keep it locked on for the next hour or so as we bring you some amazing stories, as well as some interesting guests. We'll be talking about what's happening, you know, in terms of social media towards the end of the hour, as well as our in-house guest talking a little bit about politics and what we can expect from the government in the next few weeks to come as well. But first up, let's look at the world's richest man.
Exactly. So we bring you a top news story. It's international news to get you started off on this Wednesday hump day. And perhaps this is what you can do when you're looking towards goals, aspirations and planning. Well, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is definitely not one of those who's still in the planning. He has become the modern era's richest man, and Amazon Inc.'s founder's net worth has cracked a stunning 150 billion USD.
150 billion USD. That's about 55 billion USD more than Microsoft Corp co-founder Bill Gates, the world's second richest person now. At one time he was topping those charts, right?
That's right, exactly. Now, what does it even mean when it goes into such stratospheric numbers? We don't really know, but what we do know is that Jeff aside, Amazon literally it's become a verb. It's become like Kleenex, or like saying that, you know, when you go into the computer world, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, all of that. So I think once you become a catchphrase, it also goes together with making sure that your bank account is well padded.
Absolutely. So Bezos' net worth was soared by 52 billion this year, which is more than the entire fortune of the Alibaba Group Holding Limited. Meanwhile, in Asia, Jack Ma is still the wealthiest person.
That's right.
Moving on from that, talking about money and how much you have in your account, our ex-Prime Minister had his accounts frozen for some time.
Yes, he did. But now they've been unfrozen, according to the MACC. They've been thawed. Now, the personal bank accounts of former Prime Minister Sri Najib Abdul Razak are no longer frozen, according to an MACC source. And the source said the account was unfrozen as it was no longer linked to politics or matters investigated by the authorities.
That's right. And asked whether the withdrawal of the freeze could also cover several other accounts. The source said the freeze would be withdrawn for all other accounts as well. We saw some time a week before that about 100 over accounts were frozen, all accounts that were linked to the 1MDB investigation.
That's
and of
right.
course, as you said, they have unlinked these accounts to the investigation for now.
Well, definitely, I think what we're waiting to see is why exactly the accounts have been cleared, and I'm sure that we'll bring you all the updates in the days to come. Remember that Pakatan Harapan government has promised within the first 100 days. We're still over somewhere in the 60+ mark, right?
That's right. And moving on to something else that I think will never escape the minds of Malaysians and those around the world as well, the MH17 tragedy.
That's right.
Malaysia, of course, still seeking justice for the victims.
And it was actually quite heartening, Jessie, to see yesterday that a lot of people on social media, friends and alike, still posting about let's not forget MH17.
Absolutely.
You know, solidarity with the friends as well as the families, of course. And our Transport Minister Anthony Loke Siu Fook also said yesterday that they have solidarity, and Tuesday marked, of course, the 4th anniversary of the downing of MH17, where 298 passengers and crew on board Malaysia Airlines aircraft died after the jetliner was shot down over eastern Ukraine on July 17, 2014.
That's right. So this footage we're seeing now on the screens, of course, from 4 years ago. That's on right. That very, very sad morning. I still remember this moments very clearly. The newly minted transport minister stressed that Malaysia will not rest until they bring closure to this tragedy. So here's hoping we'll get more answers and more clarity, especially for the family members of those involved. Okay, so something else that's coming out of the news as well.
That's right.
We've got Hindraf's Watia Murthy, Unity Minister, Chin Chong Deputy Defence Minister. All this coming out from some newly appointed ministers in the Prime Minister's Department.
That's right. Now, of course, this was part of Parliament's first seating yesterday under the new Pakatan Harapan government. And now, previously, Watia Murthy resigned in 2014 as Deputy Prime Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, 8 months after he was appointed by then Prime Minister Datuk Sri Najib Razak, and DAP's Liew Chin Tong was sworn in as Deputy Defence Minister.
That's right. And 3 other Pakatan Harapan politicians who were sworn in as senators: Datuk Raja Kamarul Bahrain from Amanah, Muhammad Razi from Parti Pribumi Bersatu, Marzuki Yahya from the Parti Pribumi as well, were sworn in as Deputy Ministers of the Housing and Local Government, Economic Affairs and Foreign Affairs respectively. On that note, Tam, we take a quick breather, go grab your cup of coffee or if it's your plate of nasi lemak or anything, and come right back, or we'll be back after these messages.
Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to BERNAMA Today with me, Tamina Kauchi, and Jessie Chahal in the house, bringing you through the midweek blues. It's a Wednesday. It's pretty hazy outside, at least in the Federal Territory, right? Did you notice it?
I did, and you know how I noticed it is because a lot of people around me are having sort of a cough and a bad throat and feeling a little bit ill. So if that's happening with you as well, you know, it's probably the haze. Go someplace where you can get good, clean air.
Exactly. And, stay hydrated as well, so that you're not, you know, getting down with any of the bugs which are going around. But launching straight back into some of the top news stories. Now, this is definitely an issue which is going to come up time and again unless the government resolves it. We're speaking, of course, about the child marriage incident in Gua Musang, which is still under active investigation, according to our Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Women and Family Affairs, Datuk Sri Wan Aziza.
That's right. So this matter has not been put to rest just yet. She says, we note the distress caused and concerns raised by the incident involving the 41-year-old Malaysian man who allegedly married an 11-year-old Thai national living in Gua Musang in Kelantan. She says our stand is clear and has consistently been the one expressed on July 2nd. She said they oppose child marriages and are taking steps to raise the minimum age of marriage to at least 18 years of age. She says her officers are working on it, and she further stressed that her position on this has not changed.
That's right. Now, of course, very recently, just about 2 days ago, lawyer activist Ambika Srinivasan and also former Bar Council chairman has actually offered the perfect solution, she said, to prevent child marriage by enacting a federal law which would supersede state laws which allow for child marriage with permission. So basically, that's all which needs to be done. And there are also several other Muslim countries which have taken this stance in order to stop this from happening.
That's right. Well, moving on from that to the SST, something that's creating a lot of stir, a lot of questions popping out. Guan Eng says that the sales and services tax for the SST will not burden the people more than the goods and services tax that we had previously, the GST. They say as the government will only collect 21 billion a year and return 23 billion difference, according to the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister Lim Guan Eng.
That's right. Now, he said the expected collection from SST was estimated at only 21 billion ringgit for a full year, compared with the previous government's projected GST collection of 44 billion ringgit for 2018, which is where he got the figures from. So he said false claims by UMNO that SST will burden the people even more than GST is illogical. And this is coming from not just the finance minister, but he's an accountant. That's
right, absolutely. So he is definitely, you know, he knows what he's speaking about. Again, the GST had created a lot of confusion initially when it was first implemented, and of course it did raise the cost of, you know, expenditure.
Exactly, because of the snowballing effect. So I think even with the SST, it's going to be all about whether or not there are enough officers as well to oversee and ensure that the SST is being enforced enforced properly.
All right. We move on now to something that's coming out of the Health Ministry. The Health Ministry says they will look into a price control mechanism for medicines, and this according to Deputy Minister Dr. Lee Boon Chye.
Now, he said as medicines are not price controlled, the price just keeps increasing every year. We will discuss this with the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs for urgent attention, although there are many aspects and factors which need to be considered and scrutinized beforehand.
That's right. The Deputy Minister acknowledged that the ever-increasing price of medicines can in fact affect the affordability of healthcare. He also said that the ministry will explore measures to improve the system of medicine supply to public hospitals as well as in the market to prevent any kind of shortages. Of course, there's also a long discussion that has been ongoing for some time. Over-the-counter drugs, you know, can they be made available? What are the price points? Pharmaceutical companies, what's the ministry doing? What is your local GP doing?
And on top of that, of course, the people who it impacts the most, the rakyat, and in particular the elderly and the retired who do need their regular supply of certain medication.
True.
So hopefully the ministry and all stakeholders will reach a resolution sooner rather than later.
That's right. And for our last story in our News on the Go segment, keeping you updated and abreast with the latest that's happening. This, of course, coming from our sports desk and yes, from Arsenal.
That's right. Now, Arsene Wenger has said staying as Arsenal manager for nearly 22 years may have been the biggest mistake of his career, and that he regrets sacrificing quote-unquote everything for the job. Oh dear. Sounds like regret for the 68-year-old Frenchman who was appointed back in October 1996, and he left the North London club at the end of last season after winning 3 Premier League titles and 7 FA Cups.
It does sound a bit miffed, so maybe, you know, do you think maybe he was told to leave? We'll never know.
That is a very long time to be anywhere.
That's right. In an interview anyway, he said that he will make a decision on his future in the next few months. When asked what was the biggest mistake of his career, he in fact said perhaps staying at the same club for 22 years. 22 years, Prime Minister.
Exactly.
He was Prime Minister for 22 years.
True enough.
All right, on that note, we take a quick breather, but coming up next is our in-house guest, leadership coach Farida Hamid. We'll be talking about the Parliament, what's happening there, and what we can expect to be the outcome. Do stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Keep you up to speed.
Hi there, thanks for being with us right here on BERNAMA today. We hope that you've kick-started your day on a right note. And if you're wondering what's happening in politics, of course, coming from the hot news desk here in BERNAMA, we want to bring you the latest. So make sure you keep it locked onto BERNAMA News Channel, where it's all about you. With me in the studio is Farida Hamid, our leadership coach. We're talking about all things from what's been happening in the past few days. Yesterday, of course, being a historic day. And we saw the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, and his whole league of other people in there. Tell us a little bit, bring us up to speed with what's happening at the Parliament.
Okay, so yesterday was the day that they had the swearing in.
Yes.
And sorry, the swearing in was the day before, and then yesterday was the Agong officially opening the new Parliament.
And he opened it on a funny note. He said, guys, don't run anywhere.
It's gone viral, and I think people I think we needed that moment of levity, because the previous day there was a walkout by the now opposition MPs, and I think people were just sort of taken aback, like, you know, we're starting Parliament and they're staging a walkout. And I think that came across as socially tone deaf. I think people were like, why do you have to start on that note, you know? And I think the Agong made reference to it, and so they ended up, I feel the opposition MPs ended up looking quite small and petty. And I think they should have just thought about, it's historic, you know, it's the first time that they're actually in the opposition bench. And you get only one chance to make a first impression, and I think that impression went quite awry. So I think Kyrie, who was from BN, I think earned a lot of accolades on social media for the fact that he conducted himself very well. And so
he chose to remain
to
seated.
Stay. Yeah, he chose to stay. I think Anifa Aman also chose to stay. And I think that is an important stance to take about how BN now is seeing itself as the opposition.
That's right. So the big question here is, what can we expect, you know, from them? They seem to be sort of continuing into this kind of behavior. Will they ever learn? That's the question. And you know, do they need to step up their game? Do they need to change what has been, and what can we expect from those now who are in a leadership position?
I think you made a very interesting observation. Are they going to be willing to change? Do they even know how to change? Because they've been in government, on the other side of the aisle,
and it
forever.
has been acceptable for the longest time.
Yes, and so they're in uncharted waters. Do they even know how to be the opposition? And so then the question becomes: how are they going to behave? Are they going to be childish? Are they going to be petty? Or are they going to say, you know what, we have a chance now to present ourselves as a robust opposition. We are not going to oppose for the sake of opposing. We know the voters have sent us a very, very strong message. So we will play our role for checks and balances. And we will raise up important questions, and we will debate in an intelligent manner. And I think that is the thing that we're going to be watching, because Barisan overall has not had a very poor record. I won't even say good record, but a very poor record in intelligent debate. Generally, the opposition has done a much better job.
So how do you think they would sort of meet halfway? Because obviously they would need to speak up, share their ideas, and still on some seats as well.
Yes.
How are they planning? How do you think, what might be a better strategy for them to at least meet halfway, where they can start having this intelligent debates or conversations at least?
I think they have to take stock of the fact that the Rakyat has sent them a message. But the issue now is they are angry, they are embarrassed, and so they seem to have retreated into, I'm going to attack everything that comes out of the government, Pakatan government, they're going to attack. And so,
quite defensive,
yes, and I think they have an important role to play, because they are quite a formidable opposition. There are many people who voted for them. So I think they have to step back a little bit from being narcissistic and egotistical to saying what's in the best interest of the country, taking into account the results of GE14. So they cannot be tone deaf. They can choose to be defiant, but I think that's a really bad way to go, because you're in a leadership role now as well.
Exactly. So how can they be better leaders? And I think this should be an open question for those who have newly come into power and those who have, are now in the opposition.
We have quite a large number of first-time MPs all around. And I think leadership, by definition, is by example. And so for me, what is important is there's no sexist remarks. This was something that really grated on me when I used to watch the parliament proceedings. Please, let's not have shouting matches. When you're shouting above each other, people can't make out what you're saying.
Degrading comments.
Yeah, degrading comments, race, religion, women, people have a different point of view. And I think all of this I'm going to be looking out for. And I think if you're going to be a leader, make sure, especially in the opposition, make sure you read the bills, make sure you understand what is being brought up, and debate intelligently, because Barisan, generally, the MPs have never had to debate the bills. They've never had to understand the bills. There has been a lot of accusations previously that they just rubber stamped a lot of bills, and I think that is the general feeling that most people have. So now if you're going to be in the opposition, make sure you read the briefing notes. Make sure that when you argue your case, that you argue intelligently, and the most important is, please take the interest of the country over your self-interest.
That's right. I think for a long time that has always been sort of the sideline or the side effect of being someone who is in power. But even those who have just come into their roles, the new leaders, even they have to prove themselves, and it doesn't mean that their work is any easier.
No, they have their constituents. They have got to meet their promises. That the Pakatan Harapan has to meet some of the promises they have made, and I think the promises that they can't make, I think if they can put forth a reason or a timeline about how they're going to meet those promises, those are going to be important things. For the young ones who are out there, I think this is a golden opportunity, especially for the younger ones, to set a tone. To set a tone of how they are going to be debating, because the reality is, I think we see it all over the world. A lot of parliaments are quite ruckus, I think, if that's the word. There's a lot of ruckus there. And so we have an opportunity for the young ones to come across as almost, compared to the older ones, to actually set a new tone. And they have to see themselves as leaders, because you lead by example, by your behavior, by your language, by your grasp of the issues. That is what makes an interesting parliament.
What makes someone to be good in in a place where they can lead? What does it take mentally, emotionally to be a good leader? Because whether you're on this side or that side, you still need to, like you said, you know, you have to not put yourself first, but the interests of others first. And by the looks of it, there's a lot of cleaning up to do. It's a tall order. How do we identify a good leader, and how does a good leader then be a good leader?
Well, a good leader really is about, it's not about you, it's about the people that you lead. So firstly, you set the tone. You set the tone of how you're going to behave, the kind of language you're going to use, how you're going to carry yourself, how you're going to bring up issues, and how you, and knowledge of the topics. Remember, I said you have to grasp, you've got to know what you're talking about. You can't just, you know, you can't wing it, which is what a lot of the Barisan MPs used to do.
No more now with the transparency and accountability that social media will take
There's going to be 9 new agencies which are going to report directly to Parliament. So they, you know, this is like all the very important agencies. So they're going to have to, the opposition MPs and the government have got to have their questions, they're going to have their knowledge in order so that they can ensure there's checks and balances, and that to question these agencies with whatever issues that they're going to bring up. So leadership is going to be so important, and I think any good leader has to look at not themselves, but in leading the team. So in terms of Barisan, Zahid is going to lead his team. He's going to set the tone. He's going to decide what is acceptable and what is not. And I think that's going to be very interesting to see.
What else can you sort of foresee coming out of this particular combination of the opposition and the newly elected government?
I'm very interested to see the women's voices.
That's right.
And how they debate some of these issues that are affecting women and gender in particular. Previously, what we saw is that the women of any party just sort of followed the party line. What would be interesting to see, particularly with the Pakatan government, is to see whether any of the women may champion things that may not particularly be on with the party line. So to me, that's very, that to me is the most important thing that I'm looking for.
It does seem hopeful though that they have a bigger platform now.
Bigger platform, and they have an opportunity to showcase their leadership skills. So it's the women's issues that I'm actually very fascinated to see how we're going to go forward.
And what about, like you said, the young ones? There are a few ministers there who are below the age of 40, in fact. So how will they take to? Because obviously, you know, their leadership style might be a little bit different, maybe a little bit more, I wouldn't say carefree, but a little bit more relaxed, more focused on the bigger things, where else the older leaders may want to micromanage a little bit. That could be a difference in leadership styles.
I think that's a very apt description. I think that's what we're all going to be wondering. But I think you kind of put it in a bit of a context. I think the young people are going to be the voice of the young people. They are very connected on social media, so they're very good at that. And I think their role within both the parties is to say, listen, we got to listen to what's going on in the ground. I think Pakatan will be a bit more open to that compared to BN, and I hope people like Khairi and the younger people within the opposition will have their voices strong enough to be able to get Barisan in particular to hear these voices, because these are important voices. These are issues that are national issues. We all want better quality of life. We all want better jobs.
Yeah, we all want the same things.
We all want the
but
same
this
things.
way or that way, what is, you know, the truth right now is the expectations are high, and people want this new, you know, this whole new role to play its part. So to say thank you, Farida, for being in the studios with us and shedding light on what it takes to be a good leader. We take a breather. Keep it locked on to BERNAMA News Channel for more updates coming your way.
Hello and welcome back to BERNAMA Today. Thanks for still keeping it logged on to us here on the BERNAMA News Channel, where it is all about you.
That's right. With me, Nakasji, Jessie Chahal, taking you through. Of course, we want to bring you the latest updates and keep you updated, or rather up to speed with what's happening around the world. If you haven't heard already, the Amazon founder Jeff Bezos becomes modern era's richest man.
That's right. Okay, now definitely outstriping Kylie Jenner, was it? Who's the first billionaire, self-made supposedly. But anyhow, Jeff Bezos.
It's so interesting what technology has done for people, isn't it?
And it's literally transformed, you know, the social media arena into a limitless bucket pool of money.
Absolutely. So yes, he is now the richest person in modern history. Amazon.com founder's net worth cracked $150 billion. Even that takes like long to say.
Doesn't it? I know. I mean, what does it even mean when it goes into those stratospheric numbers? But you know what, Jess? Speaking about social media influencers, we'll be having in the studios social media influencer Mongabong. That's what the name that she actually goes by, to tell us a little bit about life on the other side of the screen.
That's interesting. So make sure you want to, you keep tuned for that. They're coming up just in a couple of minutes' time. Moving on to what else is happening in and around the country. Ex-Prime Minister Najib Tun Razak's bank accounts are no longer frozen, so he can, of course, go and spend some money too.
Indeed. Now, this is according to a Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, or MACC, source, and it said the account was unfrozen as it was no longer linked to politics or matters investigated by the authorities.
That's right. And along with his account being frozen, there were many other accounts as well that were frozen, and all those have now also been unfrozen, I guess. So they are not linked to the investigation any longer. That footage, of course, we see Prime Minister going into court
a few days earlier.
A few days earlier before that.
Now, moving along from there to more somber issues. We're speaking, of course, about MH17, and it was the 4th anniversary just yesterday of the downing of MH17, and Malaysia is resolute in its pursuit to seek justice for victims, and this is according to Transport Minister Anthony Loke Siew Fook, who said this yesterday.
That's right. 298 passengers and crew were on board that unfortunate Malaysian Airlines aircraft, and of course the Transport Minister has stressed that we will not rest until there is closure that's being brought to this tragedy. So, 4 years, still counting, but not forgotten.
That's right. Now, of course, yesterday's first parliamentary session for the Pakatan Harapan government also included new ministers being minted, including Hindras Vatyamurthy as our newly torn National Unity and Social Wellbeing Minister. Now, we're also speaking about DAP's Liew Chin Tong, who was sworn in as Deputy Defence Minister. Yep, so moving in from there very quickly into a couple of international news stories coming out from our APTN broadcast. Now, this is President Obama, ex-President Obama, speaking about politicians pushing politics of fear and resentment are on the move.
That's right. Now, without ever mentioning President Donald Trump.
That's right.
By
in so many words.
That's right. The previous US President Barack Obama on Tuesday took aim at strongman politics in his highest profile speech since leaving office, urging people around the world to respect human rights and other values now under threat in an impassionate address marking the 100th anniversary. And of course, this was a special day that was to remember Nelson Mandela, of course, an icon for these issues as well.
Exactly. So, of course, Obama's speech to a cheering crowd of thousands in South Africa countered many of Trump's policies, rallying people around the world to keep alive the ideas that Mandela strive for, including democracy, diversity and tolerance. I think that's a great reminder even for Malaysia in these times, whereby we're all looking towards where does the future take us when we're moving into a borderless world. So what does nationality actually mean?
That's right. And you know what he says? Those who push fear, resentment, retrenchment, these are the wrong moves, and it's digressing, it's going backwards as well.
Exactly.
So, is that something we want to keep focusing on, or do we want to move towards, sometimes I just wish that Obama was still the president, although I'm not a US citizen, but
exactly. I mean, what's the point of 5G if you can't even, have a dialogue with somebody who's of a different race or religion?
That's right.
I mean, come on. Okay, so moving in from there to World Baobab Trees. Okay, now this is something interesting. Africa's ancient baobab, known as a tree of life, is under a new and mysterious threat, with some of the largest and oldest trees apparently dying abruptly, as we see on the screen right now, in recent years.
Now, these are beautiful, majestic trees. 9 of the 13 oldest known baobabs, aged between 1,000 and 205,000 years, have now died over the past 12 years, according to a study that was published in the scientific journal called Nature Plants. Some are so old that they predate the Christian calendar.
Wow.
But now these magnificent baobab trees are being killed off and they say it's probably because of climate change.
So there you go, the latest casualty of climate change. Now, Limpopo in South Africa is known as a land of the baobabs. The iconic trees can soar higher than 20 meters with hollow trunks so large that people have been known to build houses, shops, and even prisons inside them.
Amazing, right?
Exactly.
You know, it'd be amazing to see one of this in real life. So climate change, of course, with its rising temperatures and increasing drought conditions is a suspected factor, but no definite cause is known. These deaths of these trees have occurred in southern Africa's Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, Zambia, and even Zimbabwe.
Exactly. So a close reminder of the impact that climate change is having in very real terms. But moving along from there to another story, Schwarzenegger joins the chorus and calls Trump a quote-unquote a little wet noodle after Putin press conference.
Why is this funny?
My.
Former government of
my
California.
goodness me. So we've got a video
All
actually.
right, let's take a look at
so
that.
let's take a look at that and see what happened.
President Trump, I just saw your press conference with President Putin, and it was embarrassing. I mean, you stood there like a little wet noodle, like a little fanboy. I mean, I was asking myself, when are you going to ask him for an autograph or for a selfie or something like that? I mean, you literally sold out at this press conference our intelligence community, our justice system, and worst of all, our country. You're the President of the United States. You shouldn't do that.
Fading out.
I mean, what's the matter with you? I mean, whatever happened to the strong words or to the strength of Ronald Reagan when he stood there at the Berlin Wall and he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down.
So there you have it. The Terminator has spoken. And now Trump is, of course, faced with withering bipartisan criticism over his refusal to publicly acknowledge Russian election meddling during his meeting with Putin. And Schwarzenegger was definitely pretty unhappy.
He was very unhappy. You know, it's almost like he's going to take out a weapon and go after Trump there.
Yeah, Hollywood style.
That's right. And, you know, he says that Trump sold out at this press conference, not just the intelligence community, the justice system, but worst of all, he says, the country. So a lot of pressure there on Trump now as well. I think people are really getting a little bit fed up of trying to call him out.
Exactly. And not just that, I think it's also about a growing wave of sentiment worldwide about enough is enough with the strongman leaders. Let's have democracy and let's have some real democracy.
And you know what? We talk about world peace, but I think, and some people find it funny, but I think really at this time, let's really talk about world peace and let's really start making things happen rather than just talk about trade sanctions and talk about agreements talk about things in human rights. You know, let's actually walk the talk right now.
Actionable solutions. But on that note, time for a quick commercial break. Do stay tuned. We'll be back right after this with an exclusive interview with Mongabong. Hello and welcome back to BERNAMA Today. You're with me, Tamina Kalji, and now we have in the hot seat with us social media influencer Yo Mong Chin, or also better known as Mongabong online, to speak about social media influencers and their impact on not just the media but the perspectives of the youth, in particular towards beauty, lifestyle, and everyday life. Mong, how are you today?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Okay, great. So Mong, I haven't actually heard of your handle or your social media influence before. Tell us a little bit about your background and how did you actually get into the online bandwagon 5 years ago, I'm told.
Right. So I'm Mong Chin and I'm from Singapore. I started doing beauty content mostly, and I started writing about my life, my everyday daily life with my friends, with my family, on my blog at first 5 years ago, and then slowly transitioned to Instagram, and then now I'm on YouTube as well. And I now have my own TV show.
That's right, of course. So 23rd of July, which is next Monday, there will be the premiere of Who Runs the World with Mong Chin. Now, taking from a Beyonce song title, why Who Runs the World?
Because this show is going to be on Lifetime Asia, and it's all about empowering women. Yeah, so I'm very, very proud to be able to call this my show, and it's actually my first TV debut. To represent women, to show people that we can actually do whatever we want to set our mind to do. And yeah, this show is a travel-related show where I go to 6 different countries and I do 6 different runs. And I'm not that big of a runner myself, so it is about me overcoming challenges.
Ah, all right. So it's not necessarily something that you already do, but you're going to be on a path to discover all of this. Right. So when we speak about social media, Mong, the main thing that we'd like to speak to you about is, what do you think about the impact that it has on the average girl or the average young woman? Hasn't it come into the realm of obsession, whereby people are basically logged onto the devices all the time. How do you find the balance between obsession and, okay, healthy indulgence?
Right. So, of course, with everything, there are so many. They're good. There's the good side. There's the bad side, right? So, with social media, I feel that the good side, the good thing is, all the youth these days, we're all so like knowledgeable. We are on things like super quick. News gets disseminated so fast. We have all the information online for us. So in that sense, we're a lot more knowledgeable, and I think that is a good thing because we're not so naive anymore. And
there's
we're not
information overload though. Then there's also just jumping onto the bandwagon.
Yes.
Is there a difference though? And how do you bridge that gap, Mong?
With everything, there needs to be a balance. So. You cannot be too obsessed with something. And one very important thing I always tell people, being a social media person myself, you know, do not take everything you see online as real.
Right.
Yeah, because there are a lot of people that curate their whole lives and to make it seem so perfect on social media. But of course, like a normal human being, you have your down days, you have your bad days, you have bad things happening, you know. So, but people can choose not to show that part online, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, and you should not take it that, hey, that person's life is so perfect. And look at your life and think that it's any less perfect just because, you know, it's more real.
Now, the opposite side as well, what I've noticed as well is that there is a new wave of especially lifestyle Instagrammers, bloggers, YouTubers, especially in the US and otherwise, who are all about showing real life, gritty, dirty.
Yes.
Okay, you've got Chrissy Teigen. Now, Chrissy Teigen, she's of course a global celebrity and model, but she basically, you know, she shows off videos and clips of her breastfeeding all the way from, you know, the everyday down and dirty. So what do you think of this? Is this a counterbalancing wave or is it just too much information?
No, I think it is a really, really good balance because it kind of shows people that, hey, you might think everything is perfect. You might think she is perfect.
Right.
But it's nice and people think it's real and authentic that she shows this side of her. And in fact, it is very widely celebrated when, you know, someone as perfect as she is shows the real side of life.
Exactly, right. Now, the interesting thing about social media is, though, that regardless of people talking about let's celebrate individuality, there is always a certain standard. Now, what we're seeing on the screen, of course, is clips of you in the different countries. So let's talk about the challenge of creating fresh content. How do you get the ideas to create something fresh when literally it's all already out there?
Right. You know, sometimes I try to think about, you know, what should I film today, what should I say, and everything. And I think the most important thing and what people I realize really like is when you are true and honest. To me, what might seem boring to me, like why would people want to watch my daily life? But actually, a lot of my followers, when they, you know, leave me with comments and everything, they always tell me that they really appreciate it when I show them what is my real life. Like,
okay, such as what are some things that
like
you've
what
really seen people respond
eating,
to? Okay.
You know, like to me,
random
like,
stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, this is so boring. Why would people want to know what I'm eating today? But a lot of people will be like, hey, I didn't know you like this food, you know.
So
and
how
things
do you
like
personally, Mong, how do you personally bridge the fine line between oversharing and also still keeping your own privacy, your own sanity in the middle of it?
You know, of course, with everything, I will think twice about putting it out online because there are going to be a lot of people that will, you know, look up to me, people that will be discussing the things that I put online. So with everything, there needs to be some sort of like conscious...
Some filter.
Yeah, some filter. Yeah, I mean, if I think this piece of information is too like controversial, I wouldn't really share it, you know. Like, I don't really want to offend anyone. It's really just about me sharing my life. And I mean,
So how can you say that you're speaking about, you know, real topics and women empowerment when you say that you don't want to offend either? Female empowerment is also a real hot button issue. And as long as you're, you know, dealing within the premises of, let's say, just femvertising or making things look happy and safe, that's fine. But what about the real topics behind it, the real issues?
Right. For me, I think there are so many ways to go about that. You don't have to go and say like, hey, whatever you're doing is not female empowerment. You don't have to put anyone down. I can just do it in a way where I take myself as an example. You know, I complete all these runs in Who Runs the World with Mong Chin, and I think that in itself is kind of embodying female empowerment, because I joined these races with big men. I did the Spartan race in Cebu and all that, and if they can do it, I can too, and I did it. So that in itself is kind of an example.
It's a message without having to hard sell it.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't have to be like, hey, look, I beat that guy, I came in earlier than that guy. I don't have to do that. I just have to tell people like, hey, I did it. And
I participated for me, that kind of thing. Okay,
Yes.
so speaking about the show itself, what were some of the unexpected challenges? So far you've told us about the good stuff, okay,
Yeah.
you took part in a Spartan race, etc. What was the most difficult thing that you actually had to do, if you're willing to share?
Of course. Like I mentioned, the Spartan race, everyone knows that the Spartan is actually
It's
one
tough
of the...
murder,
It's
literally.
really tough. And honestly, like me in the past, I would not sign up for such things. But after doing the show and completing all these and surviving all these obstacle races and runs, I really have a newfound respect for people who really go out there and like just put their minds and do it, and I can see why people do it now. So to me, that was actually really tough. There were so many times I wanted to give up during the Spartan race.
So what gave you the strength to, especially when it's a physical thing, it's not just a mental thing,
Yes.
Where did you find the strength?
Really, because I know that it's gonna be on the show. That in itself,
You wanted to complete it.
Yes,
so
I
you're
really
very
want to
goal-based
complete it.
as well.
Yes. It's about, as long as you give yourself time, like how to just take a step at a time.
And how do you think the show is especially relevant for millennials, who are, of course, not just your target market, but you yourself hope to represent as a good role model? Why should people watch this?
Who Runs the World is actually very different. It's a digital-first approach kind of TV show. So how it's different is in the sense, because I do like Instagram and all that, right? So usually for traditional TV, people only get to see the finished product. And
That's
it's so
right.
polished, right? Nobody gets to talk about what happens behind the scenes. Nobody really gets to tell people what they're working on while they are filming the show. But for Who Runs the World, I was actually on the go, Instagramming everything, posting everything on Insta stories, and I was also asking all of my fans and followers like, oh, so I'm in this place, what would you recommend? And some of them really gave me really good feedback and recommendations like, oh, you should try this place, you should try to do this in this country. And when we have the time, we actually did squeeze in some of these, stuff. So I think it's very good for millennials in a sense. They like to be heard. They like to feel part of something.
And in a way, they literally sort of help shape your show as well, which is what I think is fascinating, because as you said, I think I saw a little bit of this with maybe Amazing Race Asia's latest seasons, but there's still a bit of an embargo on what you can post or you can talk about. So how did you also, at the end of it, the show producers and yourself, keep the show content fresh despite having, had people really in from the production process all the way from start to finish?
This show is really cool because the producer actually really gave me free reign over what I wanted to say, what I wanted to do, because it is about my experience. It's my show, so people will get to really see and feel the exact moment I felt.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was not any script. Like there wasn't any script.
So it was
involved.
literally
it
on
was
the fly.
Really, yeah. And we really completed all the races. I really did everything. You see me struggling in there a lot. It's really my true emotion. I was so tired, down and dirty.
Yeah,
and
literally.
everything.
Like as you said, 6 countries, and you did a race in each and every single one of them.
Yes.
What was your favorite race or your favorite memory?
My favorite memory would be the episode in Chiang Mai, where we did it. We went to film during the Songkran period.
Right. Okay.
Yes. So the whole streets, like everyone had water guns. They were just like fighting, like doing all the water fight and everything. The energy was really there, and Chiang Mai was also one of my favorite episodes to film because we had a lot of other activities that were pretty cool. I had to dress up like a ghost.
Okay.
In a haunted house.
Nice.
Yeah, and I also did like zip lining, and I met like a lot of friends over there. That was really nice.
Okay, now speaking about the Malaysia episode, tell us a little bit about some of the local key personalities that you interact with. There was Nana Al-Haleg, Zama Era, who we've also had on the shows before.
Right.
Right. So what did you find out that was interesting on the flip side from these ladies?
Well, it's interesting because Malaysia is just like next door to Singapore.
Exactly.
We're
and
neighbors. We have so many similarities, but I actually did so many things for the first time coming here to KL to film. With Zamira, she actually wrote a rap for me.
All right.
We composed the rap together.
Nice.
Yeah, and we rapped together. She taught me how to rap. It was really, really fun. She's so talented. And then with Nana, she is, you know, fitness and all into fitness.
Did she give you some tips for your next races?
Yeah, so I met her and she really taught me a lot. You know, she taught me how to warm up. She really motivated me a lot as well. So I made so many good new friends.
Yeah, I think we're just playing the videos of your experience with Nana. And what race did you take part in Malaysia?
I did the Standard Chartered Marathon, the 10 kilometers run.
Nice, okay. So now going back to Instagram and developing the social media feed, a lot of young people especially, and I think even people in their 30s all the way up to retirees, are interested in curating a good feed. And of course, cameras help with that. Is there a particular camera that you use or that you really rely on, or are you more of a point your phone and shoot?
Okay, so it's really good that you asked me this question because on this show, I was actually vlogging with the Canon EOS M50.
Right.
So the whole show is actually me with my camera. I was running with
we
it,
noticed
climbing
that
mountains
all the
with
clips.
it.
Yeah.
Yes. So that camera is really a big part of my life and my work because back in Singapore, I also film a lot of YouTube videos, beauty tutorials, and stuff like that with that camera. So yeah,
so
I'm
lifesaver.
Yeah, I'm all about that camera.
Okay, brilliant. So Mong, just before we sign off, any words to not just your fans out there, but also people on how to maintain the sanity between living a social media life and living real life?
Right, okay. I think it's most important to not, you know, take everything with a pinch of salt, you know, like everything you see online, do not base it on your own life because everyone is pretty much the same at the end of the day. Yeah, so it's very important to live happily, just do whatever makes you happy, do whatever your heart's desire, and like go for your dreams and don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
All right, brilliant.
So, thank you so much for having me here.
It's been a pleasure, Mong. We'll see you around
pleasure.
soon, and definitely catch Mong's premiere of Who Runs the World with Mong Chin. So this will be on Lifetime, which is Astro Channel 709. I'm Tamina Kauji signing off on BERNAMA today. We'll see you again next time.